Owner of AM 950, here to tell you about the exterior construction company I trust, Snap Construction. If your home was hit with the most recent storms, trust the most well-reviewed exterior construction company, Snap Construction, for a free home inspection.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. There are a lot of great construction companies in town. My advice is to take your time and do your research. Make sure they are locally owned and that they guarantee their craftsmanship for life. Also, you want to find a company that's been in business for at least 10 years. You want to work with a company that's going to be there long after the work is done. Snap Construction has handled thousands of claims, and we'll help you through the process.
Don't go with the out-of-town, fly-by-night contractor. Most storm damage goes missed by the untrained eye. Trust Snap Construction for your free storm damage evaluation. For your free storm damage evaluation, call Snap Construction at 612-333-SNAP or visit them online at snapconstruction.com. That's 612-333-SNAP or snapconstruction.com.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hi, this is Philip Anthony, the host of the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. I interview many interesting people and listen to their thoughts on how they plan to better our community and to hear their opinions on current events. Join us and get in on the conversation. You can listen to my podcast, The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony, wherever you listen to podcasts or at am950radio.com. So come and join me and continue being fantabulous.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 42, Friday sunny with a high near 66, and Saturday partly cloudy with a high near 57. Crooner Supper Club invites you to check out the stylish Maggie's Lounge before or after your show. With a welcoming atmosphere, it's the perfect place to catch up with friends before or after a show. Open Wednesdays through Saturdays beginning at 4:30. Stop by for cocktails and light bites. More at croonersloungemn.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous. Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hit me cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local and national Native news, and as you know, Haley, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
You're absolutely right, Robert. And this portion of the show is supported by JS Bean Factory off Randolph Avenue in St. Paul. Native owned, bringing us the best coffee that keeps us awake.
Yeah, that's right. I am awake. Hey, we got a crazy show today, and we're really excited. We got Roya Taylor, Bob Blake, and a couple segments with Bob, and we're talking about some stuff. And also, before we get going here, I know we have the governor, Governor Evers, giving us an update as he does weekly. I just want to give a quick shout out about Saturday, Reframing Our Stories exhibit opening, talking about Native Americans, all the pictures they found and exhibits from Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we're going to go live at 1 p.m. So stop by and say hi to Haley while I'm kibitzing on the radio live.
Yes, you guys come hang out with us at the Minnesota History Center this Saturday, October 21st from 11 to 2. We'll be going live there. So, yeah, come look through the photographs with us and see if you can spot any of your relatives back from the 50s and 60s.
And 70s. Oh, wow. Yeah, exactly.
Very
Hey,
cool.
and then tomorrow, and I guess there is limited for the movie that's going to be playing here, The Killers of the Flower Moon. That will be happening tonight and then tomorrow. And then next week we'll talk about it. 3.5 hours, but I hear it goes really fast. And also, I always talk about the fact that Cannes, when it was shown at Cannes, it had a 45-minute standing ovation. It was so good. So I'm excited to see that. So much going on around here in the Twin Cities. But without further ado, you didn't know I spoke French, did you, Haley?
I did
Without
not.
further ado,
Fancy.
yeah, let's take a listen to Governor Evers of Wisconsin.
Hey there, Native Roots Radio. Governor Tony Evers here with my weekly update. Republicans are dragging their feet on the most pressing issues facing our state, even as Wisconsin's small businesses, farmers and producers, hospitals and healthcare sectors, and schools, among other critical employers and industries, continue to face significant challenges filling available jobs. And with each day of Republican delay and inaction, Wisconsin families, employers, and communities, especially in our rural areas, pay the price. Child care centers are closing their doors in communities like Lancaster and Cashton. Providers are raising their rates so that they can pay their staff and their bills. Kids and families are on child care wait lists if they can find care nearby at all. The truth is, Wisconsin child care providers, parents, and workforce can't afford continued Republican inaction. I'm announcing emergency stopgap funding to stabilize our state's child care industry and prevent its imminent collapse. I'm directing $170 million to continue the Child Care Accounts program to help support our child care industry through the end of the biennium, providing direct relief to over 4,000 child care providers statewide. I promised to do everything I could to stabilize our child care industry, support working families, and recruit, retain, and train a workforce that can meet the needs of the 21st century. And I keep my promises. But I also want to be clear, while I'm hopeful this investment will stave off an urgent collapse of our state's child care industry, this is a stopgap measure and will still not make our child care providers whole. Republicans must do the right thing, put politics aside, and join us in the important work of finding real solutions for the real challenges facing our state. And I'll keep fighting for child care providers, working families, employers, and our communities every day until they do. Thank you. Back to you, Robert, and Roots Radio.
Wow. Hey, thanks, Governor Evers, for that update. Just to thank goodness we have Governor Evers in Wisconsin.
Right, right. Yeah. And just talking about too, like kids and families on childcare wait lists. That is just really, really hard. You know, if parents can't find people to watch their kids, they can't go to work and they can't make a living, let alone pay for childcare services. So, yeah, that's really great news to hear that Governor Tony Evers did put the emergency stopgap funding towards childcare in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know if you knew this before, Robert, but right out of college, I was actually working at a pretty fancy daycare. I'm not going to say which one here in Minnesota, but I was an infant teacher, and I would hear all the time from parents just not necessarily complaining, but, you know, worried about how they're going to be able to pay for the next month of childcare at the place I was at. And it was always just so devastating to hear that parents and families were concerned and not able to find care.
I know, and it's crazy because it's a double-edged sword. If you can't find or can't afford for childcare, and you can't afford to work, like you said, and if you can't afford to work, you can't afford child care costs. So, my goodness.
Yeah, but luckily they have the Governor Tony Evers trying to do some good work there.
You know, I'm wondering too, and this is just speculation, and maybe we can ask Arvina when she's on again, or somebody from Wisconsin. I know Tony Evers is getting up there in years. Who do we have in the waiting to run for governor? That's
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 a
going
great
to be,
question.
because I think he's going to be 74 years old, if I'm not mistaken, when he's running for reelection. So,
Mm.
is he up for it again? I know he had some health issues. I think he suffers from Crohn's or something like that. So he's really kicking butt, and we just hope the best for him in Wisconsin. We love going into Wisconsin. I see you went in there today.
I did. I had a fun little hike this morning out at Willow River State Park, which is very close to the St. Croix River here, just across the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. So, yeah, just being a Ho Chunk descendant, I had to go put some good medicine in one of those Wisconsin rivers this morning.
And you saw an interesting sign. I wonder if you want to just quickly touch base on that, because it was very interesting.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, I know you and I briefly talked about this before, but so there's a sign out there this is at the Willow Falls out there at Willow River State Park. And there's a sign that says 1910. Willow Falls was once a hidden gem undisturbed by humans.
Mm.
That is until 1914, a German immigrant by the name of Christian Bierkard, seeing great potential for the power in the rushing water of the falls, built his mill.
Thank
So,
goodness. Right?
I know. So, like, apparently people didn't exist, in the state of Wisconsin before 1910, but,
Yeah.
no one heard those falls rushing, apparently. I guess there were no Native Americans around, but.
Well, even 1910, for goodness sakes. I know the French have been here and gone and back and forth in Wisconsin in the 1600s. They didn't stumble upon that.
I don't think so. I think there were people that knew about that.
Thank goodness for the Germans, and it sounds like they put together some sort of dam or something, huh?
Yeah,
Or
right. Didn't leave it natural. Of course, I got to build something on it.
right on. Well, hey, thanks for investigating that, and I know
Anytime.
that's an awesome place, and it looked like the water was running good, which is
Yep.
good because we're on the borderline of a big drought here in the 5-state area, and I know we've had some rain lately, and that's a good sign. But that's enough of my weather report. Why don't we take a break here, and who do we got up next there, Haley?
We've got Bob Blake from Red Lake Nation with the Solar Bear with the Solar News.
Right on. And then in between that, we have Roya Taylor of KFAI stopping in and giving us an update of what's happening around the Twin Cities and a little bit about his radio show.
Yeah, very good stuff.
All right. Hey, we'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Getting bus and train information in your language just got easier. Customers who call Metro Transit at 612-373-3333 are able to select language options at the start of the call. Access Next Trip, their automated real-time schedule information tool, and other Metro Transit assistance by calling 612-373-3333. For more information about other transit informational tools, visit metrotransit.org/tools.
The Guthrie Theater presents For the People, an irreverent new comedy born of the Twin Cities Native community. In the play, April Dakota dreams of opening a wellness center on Franklin Avenue to serve the Native community. She's counting on a grant to make it happen, but when her presentation goes sideways, she's forced to make a decision that puts the community and her culture at risk. On stage now through November 12th. Tickets at GuthrieTheater.org. That's through November 12th. GuthrieTheater.org.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Strong Hearts Native Helpline is here to help. If you are experiencing domestic or sexual violence, Strong Hearts advocates provide culturally appropriate support and advocacy for Native Americans and Alaska Natives. Free, confidential, anonymous, 24/7. Strong Hearts advocates are Native American and take a Native-centered approach to every contact. Call or text 1-844-762-8483. That's 1-844-7-NATIVE, or chat online at www.strongheartshelpline.org.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with Robert Blake as promised with the Solar Bear with the Solar News. Welcome back, Robert.
Hey, thanks, Robert, for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're wearing two hats today. We were just listening to Robert Blake with the cannabis news, and now we're with Robert Blake with the Solar Bear with the Solar News. So hit us with the solar news.
Well, Robert, there's a lot happening in the energy transition, right? And one of them is clean hydrogen. And so this is going to be another kind of part of that, transition that's going to be happening with electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles. This will be powering like, take for instance, like big semi trucks, right? Airplanes, things like that, right? So what had just happened is the U.S. Department of Energy is investing $7 billion in America's first regional clean hydrogen hubs. There's 7 across the nation. I believe there's Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This portion of the show is supported by Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Support honest Native news from natives themselves. Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon.
Honestly honest, I like to say here on Native Roots Radio. And we have a special guest, as always. Feel like his special is Robert Blake, and he's the owner of Solar Bear and also CEO of Native Sun, nonprofit solar company. And we're always great to have Robert on here, but we're going to stretch it out a little bit today. We're going to have Robert on a couple segments here, but we wanted to talk a little bit about, again, like we did yesterday with Senator Agard from Wisconsin, we want to talk a little bit about what's happening here, good and bad, with the marijuana. And Bob, you're Bob Blake from Red Lake, and your tribe's selling legal cannabis in a good way, and we're first on there, and we really support this economic development in this tribe, in your tribe.
Yeah, Robert, thank you. I think that's incredible that all this is taking place, and probably should have taken place a long time ago. But I think about that group of kids that were on spring break. I think it was last year or the year before. They were in Florida, and they bought that laced marijuana with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And they died, and I really feel like if we're going to have this, this has been happening for years. Kids have been smoking, marijuana and whatnot for years, but I just don't want people to die for wanting to, I guess, partake in which has been kind of like a natural, right, in growing up, know what I mean? And these kids, died from that. So, I think Red Lake taking the lead on this and getting kind of out of the gate first of this, and I think that individuals that are old enough to purchase and use recreationally, safely, I just think that is really good for the industry as a whole. you
Mhm.
know, and so I wholeheartedly support Red Lake and all tribal nations that want to be involved in this industry. Especially Robert, when you consider that, let's be honest, that Black and Brown people, BIPOC communities have borne, the biggest, the biggest brunt of
Yeah.
this during the drug wars.
Right, the drug wars, and remember, our friend Bill Clinton did 3 strikes and you're out, and there's a lot of people that are in prison right now that, you might have been their 3rd strike might have been selling marijuana, and that was a bad, bad thing that happened, and it happened directly with BIPOC people.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and kind of interesting, Robert. I've been asked to get on to sit on a panel that's going to be happening coming up, and I don't have all the details yet, but it we're going to be talking about this issue, and I think that one of the things that is of concern, especially in BIPOC communities, is out think in Illinois, maybe. Um, and it's the deployment of low cost clean hydrogen, kickstarting a national network of clean hydrogen producers, consumers, and infrastructure. Now, the one thing that, Robert, like I think kind of in the last, segment we kind of talked about is that these
That's
hydrogen
Solar Bear with
hubs
the
and
Solar
all of
News.
this
Welcome
infrastructure.
back, Robert.
Hey, thanks, Robert, for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, you're, wearing 2 hats today. We were just listening to Robert Blake with the Solar Bear with the Solar News, so hit us with, the Solar News.
Well, Robert, there's a lot happening in the energy transition, right?
Mhm.
And the one thing that's going to happen is that these hydrogen hubs and all of this infrastructure that's being developed to basically do this is then going to be sold to the oil companies.
Exactly.
And I think that the oil companies see this play, and this is part of kind of their angle, and what they want to do is take over this market and then buy this infrastructure for pennies on the dollar. Kind
Right.
of something similar that happened during the credit crisis and the big banks, and the way that they were bailed out, and they paid pennies on the dollar, right, for all this.
Mhm.
So I kind of see the same, I don't want to say steal, but situation kind of emerging. And I would want everybody to know that they heard it here first on the Solar Bear with the Solar News on the Native Roots Radio Network, that we need to, as the public, need to advocate that this is not what happens.
When you're talking about that, I think of and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like there's too many uh, laws against us grabbing free energy as it is. I mean, why can't I have a nice size windmill and where all this wind is happening by my house to save in batteries, but it's against the law to have something like that in the city.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and that's a great, because when I think about tribes and their ability to lead in this transition, they don't have all of those rules. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And when we're faced with the crisis that we're being faced with around the planet, around the world, you know, this really does, it can't have all this red tape. You know what I mean? If we're going to find the different solutions. So I think you're totally right, Robert. And we really have to look at a multifaceted way of that. We're going to all consume our energy, whether it be wind, a combination of wind, solar, hydro, what have you, geothermal, because and like you said, the rules doesn't allow you to do that. And
Right.
so, that's where like I said, tribes are really going to be able to make inroads. As they create their own tribal utilities, they'll be able to create market share, grab market share, and this is going to be a big opportunity for tribal nations in the future to be a part of.
Yeah, I think the hit is too, and we talked a little bit earlier in the show about Red Lake and being a sovereign nation, and to remind our listeners what a sovereign nation is. It would be like the United States dealing with France or England. We're a sovereign nation, and we have our own laws and our own police and of course our people live there. Uh, so there's things that we should be able to do if we're and not have to ask for permission, especially when it comes to solar and wind.
Yeah, and so one of the things too is that like big investor-owned utilities like say Xcel Energy, right? They
Hmm.
have a thing called the franchise agreement, and they have a franchise agreement with the city of St. Paul for 20 years. That's what they signed with them.
Huh.
Now they only have a franchise agreement with the city of Minneapolis for 10 years. But when I think about that, um, you know, um, there's been reports from people that said that, well, Xcel Energy doesn't really listen to my complaints on St. Paul's side. People in Minneapolis say, well, they listen to my complaints. Maybe it's because they have 10 more years.
Right.
So it's things like that, right? I think we have to rethink, you know what I mean? And that's going to come from city governments, and that's going to come from the voters, you know?
Right.
And so, hey,
But
Robert.
also coming from education from what you're doing and talking to us about. This would
Yeah.
not be my radar unless we're talking about it here.
Someone told me at a community event that I was at, that I was speaking at, they were like, Xcel Energy has an agreement with the city of St. Paul for 20 years. And I said, yeah, you think the Xcel Energy Center in downtown St. Paul is on accident? you
Right.
know, it's stuff like that, right? And they only have a franchise agreement with the city of Minneapolis for 10. And so it's those things that, like when I speak at these events, Robert, that I
Mhm.
really do try to educate the public about. Hey, Robert, I want to jump to a story around electric vehicles, and I really think this is important because it's about unions.
Mhm.
It's about the biggest Ford plant in the country, and it's basically the United Auto Workers in Chicago, and this is Ford's longest running manufacturing plant, Robert. But get
Yeah.
this, they are wondering if they're going to be able to maintain job security as we transition over into this electric vehicle market.
Hmm.
So this is really going to be something that's going to be at the forefront, I think, of unions, and especially with the big three, because here's the thing: these electric vehicles are going to last longer
Right.
and going to go longer, and so there is going to be that where we're going to have to figure out how do we get our auto workers, how do we get our workforce retooled in other aspects of this transition, so I think this is a really interesting piece, and I think it's going to be a bigger story down the line.
Well, Robert, what about I think of that, and it's the same thing with watches. I have to get a new watch every 2 years. I think just because there's more and better technology on the phone or the watch, and hopefully these companies can see that and make it affordable that we can get a new car every 2 years because it's a cool thing, or there's things helping it. But yeah, we got to stay tuned to that. Hey, Robert, thanks for being on twice today. That's go ahead, say it. It's the Solar Bear.
It's the Solar News with the Solar Bear.
Right on. Hey, Peeny Gigi, thanks for everyone being on the show. If you're listening to the show, you are part of the reason.
And as a heads up, we are actually going to be playing the second half of Robert Blake's interview coming up in the about 5:50 or so. But we are going to take a quick break here on Native Roots and continue with the show. So we will have more Bob Blake coming up in just a few minutes here on Native Roots Radio.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
In this critical time for Indian country, voting is crucial to protecting the land, water, and communities. Voting creates collective power in securing our planet's future amid climate chaos. Engage in personal conversations with loved ones to ensure they are making informed voting choices. Register to vote. And don't forget that 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote in Minnesota. NACD is asking us to stand together and make voting a tradition. Go to NACD.org to learn more and make your pledge to vote.
Be a vaccinative. As the fall season continues, new COVID-19 variants threaten the health of not just you, but our elders as well. These new variants might even evade previous vaccines. That's why it's important to stay up to date. The newly authorized vaccines target current variants effectively and are FDA approved for ages 6 months and older. But there is an important note. These are the first COVID vaccines to be commercialized, which means there may be costs associated with them. Speak with your health insurer about your coverage before scheduling an appointment to avoid a surprise bill. For those without health insurance, help is available. Ask your health clinic about options or visit vaccines.gov for free locations. Getting vaccinated protects you from severe disease. Don't put yourself or elders at risk. So be a vaccinative and protect our community. You can visit vaccines.gov for free vaccine locations.
This message is brought to you in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health.
October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Strong Hearts Native Helpline is here to help. If you are experiencing domestic or sexual violence, Strong Hearts advocates provide culturally appropriate support and advocacy for Native Americans and Alaska Natives. Free, confidential, anonymous, 24/7. Strong Hearts advocates are Native American and take a Native-centered approach to every contact. Call or text 1-844-762-8483. That's 1-844-7-NATIVE, or chat online at www.strongheartshelpline.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 42, Friday sunny with a high near 66, and Saturday partly cloudy with a high near 57. At Crooner's Supper Club, the entertainment doesn't stop when the show ends. Head over to Maggie's Lounge for some post-show drinks and great conversation. You'll love the relaxed and friendly atmosphere. That's Maggie's Lounge at Crooner's Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65, or at croonersloungemn.com.
Minnesotans age 65 plus might qualify for Health Partners Minnesota Senior Health Options. The plan includes personal support, coverage for medical, prescription drugs, and dental, plus over 30 extra benefits. Eligibility information is available at healthpartners.com/oneplan. Health Partners is a health plan that contracts with both Medicare and the Minnesota Medical Assistance Medicaid program to provide benefits of both programs to enrollees. Enrollment in Health Partners depends on contract renewal.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
How? Hey, we are here with Roya Taylor, and Roya's at the KFAI studio here, and she's chiming in here, and we wanted to get Roya on and talk about what's going on, one, with her show, and two, what's going on in the Native community. So I thought it'd be a good time to reach out to Roya and say a big ahoo. Hey, welcome to Native Roots Radio, Roya.
Oh, thank you, Robert. You two caught me flat-footed there. I was going to try and howl in unison with you. I forgot about that at the beginning of every episode there, so I missed that. You'll just have to have me on again sometime. At least I wasn't singing, so nobody wants to do that. Anyway, Halito and Noah and Kari to all my relatives out there across Turtle Island. That's why I always start my program every week here at KFAI Fresh Air Community Radio, KFAI.org. You can always stream it there and then pick us up on the broadcast from the 24/7 schedule on Friday nights at 6 p.m. Turtle Island time, or Central Daylight Time as we still call it here. So
yeah. And Roya, talk a little bit about your show before we get into what's happening in the community. What do you do on your show? I know I've had the great privilege of being on your show a few times, and we were together at the fair.
Yes. Yeah, Robert was my date for the evening at the yeah, we did a 2-hour block there where we combined or blended my hour at 6 and Robert's hour at 7 here on KFAI. If anybody didn't realize it, but Robert, Native Roots Radio, I'm Awake, the best of from the previous week, always airs at 7 p.m. here at KFAI 90.3 in Minneapolis. So we did that combined show. We had a great time. We had some great music, some great guests.
Yeah, I actually listened to that one, Roya, and I think we lost you there for a second, but I remember I did listen to that 2-hour special that you guys did together, and you really put me on to some Buffy St. Marie, so I got to give you a shout out for that. I love that. No, Gangladesh or whatever she said.
Yeah, I was gonna say Gilgamesh, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a good old classic there. So glad we could do that. But yeah, my program is on preceding Robert's every Friday night, 6 p.m. In fact, tomorrow night, I'm just working on finishing up. We're going to do my spouse and I do an irregular or occasional, however you want to refer to it, a movie review program. So we're highlighting a couple of new films, and then maybe I don't know if it's a classic yet, but it's an older one from 2008, and then one from 2018. So you may people have to tune in to hear more about that. Our take on whether these are worth spending the time, the dime, and maybe finding it on their streaming service.
Yeah. Well, we got a big movie coming up. Wendy and I have tickets for Friday night to go see Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, the Robert Pilot or Bobby P story. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We all wish we were Osage, right?
Well, back then it was a little scary, but after that, it sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
We have
that's the show, I guess. Hoping to try and get you back on maybe next week when we do some more fundraising here at KFAI. So we're in the commercial band of the what do they call that? The ether, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's getting to be fundraising time too at KFAI, and it's always good to support that great station. And I feel honored about putting the best of on that station once a week.
Yeah, so do we. I'm glad you're on that 24/7 schedule. And of course, people can go to KFAI.org and pick it up for up to 2 weeks in the archives. They just have to go back to the I can't remember how it's loaded up, but just go to kfai.org and then you click on archives, and then you have to go day by day. So that's every Friday, and you'll see Good Medicine at 6, and then Native Roots Radio, I'm Awake, presents at 7.
Well, Roya, we went and saw For the People, and there's a big article, a Q&A with you in there.
Yes.
I was like, wow, I know this person.
Yeah, it was in the playbill. I did that interview about a month ago. I had been involved in helping the Guthrie and Ty Defoe and Larissa Fast Horse with Indigenous Direction. Although it's interesting because Larissa's on the West Coast and Ty's on the East Coast, so I don't know which. I suppose all of it is Indigenous Direction, as you're always telling us. You know, every day is Indigenous Peoples Day, so every direction is Indigenous Direction. So
that's right.
They've got both coasts covered there, but they have been workshopping this project for the last 2.5 years. So I was fortunate to be involved in multiple rehearsals and the stage reading, which took place earlier this year. And then they've been able to bring it to fruition here with the Guthrie's collaboration. And it's now being shown on the Proscenium Theater.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for those of us as Native actors and Native performers, you know, you always have that. The Guthrie's kind of standing there as a regional jewel of theater. And so it's great that this story is now being told. It's about Franklin Avenue. It's called For the People.
Mm-hmm.
And it stars many different Native actors from both coasts, most notably West Studi.
Right.
And we have 3 local actors, Adrian Zamiga January, who's Lakota, and Ernest Briggs, who is from White Earth, and Nathaniel Two Bears, I believe he is Hotuk. Yeah.
He's people of the Sacred Voice, and he plays Sage. I like how West Studi's character is Herb Ogishik. There's a O in there, like he's Irish.
Yeah, that was the joke when we were running it in script, refinement. I think that was that line was originally in there. I think they took it out. So.
Yeah, I didn't hear. It was pretty fun. And two, you need to be careful, Roya, if you're in the front row, because there is a raining.
Don't,
I mean,
spoiler alert. Yeah, that's one of the big surprises. I remember that from the stage reading. Of course, we didn't have special effects. This was at the Indian Center, so I understand it's gone off really well. People really appreciate that at the end. So I haven't seen it for myself yet. I'm hoping to maybe see it tomorrow night or certainly sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. What else is going on in the community here? I mean, it always seems like when it rains, it pours. There's things happening, book readings, and we're going to be down at the Minnesota Historical Society on Saturday doing a live show. There's a awesome reframing our story.
Right.
And we'll be down there interviewing people and just having a good old time Saturday.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that, Robert, but before we get to that, tomorrow evening, preceding the For the People performance at the Guthrie, starting at 6:00, I believe it is, I am going to be making a reprise there along with Trish Cook, Red Lake comedian, and Juanita Espinosa, who is Spirit Lake. I believe that's Spirit Lake, Dakota. And we're going to be telling stories about Franklin Avenue from our recollection, our memories. In fact, I just met with the two of them this morning. We had coffee and breakfast and just had a good old time and visiting together and kind of laying out the storytelling order and what we were going to wear and sharing with you. I got to go get my hair done, nails, all that, makeup and all that. So anyway, that's it. You can still catch that. There's a flyer that's going around on social media. It's from the Guthrie Theater, and it'll tell you you have to request. I think it's called BIPOC is the code, BIPOC. You can get access. I believe it's free access, and I think There might be a slight charge for the actual performance afterwards, but just go to the Guthrie Theater and you'll see it there. And so that's tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did see that and I was a little confused. So that's another thing that's happening there.
Well, that's for people like Haley's age, these younger Indigenous Native folks.
Right on.
For us elders, I think we get a freebie on this, free pass. So
Yeah, well, in between naps, I'll get a free pass because I'm a baby elder, Oh, yeah.
In training, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, hey, we're here with KFAI Good Medicine host Roya Taylor, and we're talking a little bit about her show on KFAI, but also what's happening around the Twin Cities. And boy, we're lucky to be here in this vibrant community.
Yeah, when I was looking at the calendar several weeks out, I thought, oh, wow, that October, November are really going to be exciting, very full of activities. It's almost like around Indian Month in May when there's so many things going on. But yeah, you're right. Saturday, October 21st at 11 a.m., Reframing Our Stories over at the Minnesota History Center. That's up there on, what is that? I'm trying to remember the cross streets. But, it's right there, just looking out.
The cathedral. And
yeah, Kellogg.
Kellogg,
Kellogg Boulevard. Yeah, right there. So there's some limited free paid parking that's available. Rita Walsick Arndt, she's involved in the I think they call it the Indigenous or Native initiatives there at the Minnesota Historical Society, and so that's something they've been working on for several years. It's going to be exciting to see photographs and a narrative that's going to be shared. Many different individuals we would all know or recognize historically, but maybe even some more contemporary voices. And then the same day at 2 p.m. down in Red Wing is We Are All Related. So, Matakiape. So that is something that the city of Red Wing is putting on to commemorate Indigenous Peoples Month. That's another thing. We started out with just a day when they won the reclamation of October the 12th from that Italian sailor who got lost there several hundred years ago. And now we're claiming the whole month.
Well, Roya, thanks for stopping in and really appreciate it. You can hear Roya on KFAI on Fridays at 6. And then my show, The Best of Native Roots Radio. Thank you so much, and we're going to have you on again real soon.
Yeah, sounds good, Robert. Thanks, Haley.
And here on Native Roots Radio, we're just going to close the show.
Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm awake.
A little while
Up
ago, he's
next,
going to talk a little bit more
we're going to have a surprise guest. We'll be right back after
that
this short.
in just a moment. And they bought that laced going to be getting to the second half of Robert Blake's interview here on 50, joining it in progress. Especially, Robert, when you consider that, let's be honest, that Black and brown people
BIPOC communities have borne, the biggest, the biggest brunt of
Yeah.
this during the drug wars.
Right, the Jaguars. And remember, our friend Bill Clinton did 3 strikes and you're out. And there's a lot of people that are in prison right now that you might have been their 3rd strike, might have been selling marijuana, and that was a bad thing that happened, and it happened directly with BIPOC people.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, kind of interesting, Robert, I've been asked to sit on a panel that's going to be happening coming up. And I don't have all the details yet, but, we're going to be talking about this issue. And I think that one of the things that, is of concern, especially in BIPOC communities, is outside corporate interests that want to be in this industry, and take then the proceeds out of state, right? And that and that wasn't, and those aren't the communities that have suffered the most, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I really do believe that there needs to be some type of, that this conversation does need to happen. I'm glad that it's being formed right now.
Mhm.
From the way that I understand it, it's St. Paul College that's forming this conversation. So, I'm really excited to participate in this and really give my opinion on it. But it really is, I think an equity issue, and it really is, just it's about doing what's right, when it comes right down to it. So I hope to see that this industry, take the necessary precautions to legitimize itself, through
Right.
continuing education, through certifications. Those are things that I've been in conversation with, and so I hope that those types of steps that we're taking, as community members from these communities that have been most affected by it, really get heard up at the Capitol, when they're making these decisions on who gets licensed and who doesn't get licensed in the state.
I feel like that was kind of part of the promise, at least when I've had people talking about on my radio show, is to include BIPOC communities because they were highly affected by this, whether, we have per capita more Native Americans in prison than any other group of people. And then I'm sure the next is African Americans. And, this to me, if I think I have a good memory, but this to me was part of the promise here in Minnesota.
And I think, and I think that those promises are, I hope are going to be kept. I don't want to say that they're not, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I think that this is a way, for us in our communities, who have been affected by this, to really advocate and really remind the powers that be that, those promises were made.
Mhm.
And we want to be a part, of, the maturity of this industry. And we want to see those benefits, directly support those communities, like I've said before, that have been most affected. And I think that one of the ways that we do that is through, certifications, through this education, through this legitimizing the industry, that, you need to hold a certain, something to be working in it. You need to be licensed by the state, something like that, right?
Right.
Continuing education, I mean, we have, my hairstyle, I go get my hair done, Robert,
good.
and
Looks
yeah, and she has to go and sit
Yep.
through continuing education.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
we are, and so we are, letting individuals, purchase, you know, uh, you know, a form of hallucination, that should be, someone doing that should probably have a license or something. So that's why I say, like, I think that's going to put it, to me, in my opinion, that allows the legitimacy to happen in this industry, and also the ability for I'm speaking just for myself, Robert, but
Mhm.
I think that the local ownership and the dollars
Right.
stay in our state and support our communities, more.
Well, I don't want to get into a situation, and this is probably spitballing a little too much, Robert, but I don't want to get into a situation where a foreign company comes in like a pipeline and doesn't care about the economy. I don't want a out-of-state business to come in here and take profits, like you said earlier, out of state. I want this to be homegrown in more than one way, not just as cannabis, but also homegrown in the BIPOC community and businesses. We deserve that right. Again, we were affected the most and have been affected the most legally, and it's just the right thing to do. And we need to keep on talking about that. And it sounds great that you're going to be able to speak on that in the symposium.
Yeah, absolutely. And this all just came about with, Solar Bear talking about we should put solar on top of these grow houses in agrivoltaics. And then we started talking more, and then I heard about an outside corporation that is, up in the northeastern part of the state, that it's buying up massive amounts of land
Huh.
to house growing houses. And it just dawned on me, Robert, that I was like, this really is not what I think, the state of Minnesota saw when they was doing all this. And our lawmakers can't see all the angles,
Right.
But I think like I said, we mature, I'm starting to see that we need to be able to have some type of certification, some type of education around this, so we can legitimize the industry, and then, allow for our, residents to, participate and hold these in that, be one of the milestones that anybody who wants to participate in this industry has to, abide to.
Absolutely. And I just, it reminds me of predators, that come in during a hailstorm, or people outside if there's a tornado. And we need to license our local people, and not these big conglomerates that really don't care about the community and care about, like you said, the education that has to come with getting a license like this.
Yeah, and I hope, Robert, that we continue to have these conversations, and as soon as I find out exactly when the symposium is, I will let you know, Robert, and then you can announce it on the show.
Absolutely. Hey, Robert, we're going to take a break between you and I.
And this is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Thanks for listening today. Had a few tech issues, but appreciate you sticking with us. We'll have the full podcasted version available over at am950radio.com and wherever you get your podcasts.
It's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast, weeknights at 7 on AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Scream at Matt Gaetz right now. Saw